So we get into our big stories, and we're going to be telling you about silencing the gun to save lives ahead of the 2024 elections and in the wake of the renewed gun-related violence in Boku and its environs. We're going to be hearing from the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons, who say they're worried that our legacy of peace could be endangered by the proliferation of small arms in the country. And let's just say it's not restricted to small arms. You see people with G3s and all kinds of sophisticated arms in different parts of the country. The question is, where do we go from here? My in-house guest has taken her seat, and I kept telling her this morning that she was in red because Kwabuchi had won. I don't know whether she's an affiliate now. She's seated here, Sweetie Abochi. Oh, look at that big gun behind your head. That's not literally, but pardon me.
Do you own a gun?
I don't.
Would you, at some point in life, own a gun?
I think so.
Why?
For self-preservation.
Do you need it? Is it absolutely necessary that you own a gun to preserve your life?
You used the conditional form, would I? And I said yes. So depending on the circumstances,
okay,
I just might. Maybe. But, you know, owning a firearm comes with a lot of responsibility. Yes. And that's why sometimes, I don't mean to rub it in for anybody, but if you remember the Stoneboy incident and pulling it out, if you didn't have it, you wouldn't pull it out. And he probably would have won that VGMA back then, not now it's changed. So, but let's bring in our guest as well. He is Programs Officer at the National Entity for Small Arms and Light Weapons, National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons, Carl Ni Anyete Soa. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, sweetie.
Carl, you have a very nice smile.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, speaking of which,
let me,
since you've brought it up, would you own a firearm?
Yes, absolutely, I would.
You would?
Yeah, to borrow your words, depending on the circumstances I find myself, should I say the environment I find myself in. If I thought it was absolutely necessary, yes, I would own a gun. Would
you prefer a taser, pepper spray, stuff like that instead of a gun?
Go all the way or go home, baby.
You're okay. Oh, all right. You're okay.
But, Carl, so let's get the conversation going. Okay. Wait, do you own a gun?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. Because, I mean, obviously, you're working against the possession of illegal arms and all that.
But if he had one, if he decided to have one, it wouldn't be illegal. He would have to do the right thing.
Yes.
So he could.
Yeah, but naturally, with my years of experience in this security space, I've come to know that you are better off without a weapon than having one. Because a gun is like a spirit, and it can actually control you. It leaves you bereft of your thinking capabilities. So I'll give you an example, the Millennium City incident. Now, who goes to the principles of the police to commit a crime?
Yeah.
You are going to the police station, you have a gun on you, and you could shoot. Yes, and you could shoot about 7 bullets. You could actually warn, if you move, I'll shoot you and do that. I'm sure after that, you may have regretted, what have I done? But it's too late. And that is what a weapon can do. Yeah.
And you know, you remember, I don't know whether you remember the G-Man Benjilo issue. Okay. And I have seen people, you know, road rage, where you're driving and someone does something, and if you have a firearm on you, and someone does that to you on the road, if you are not careful,
it's happening.
Instead of you just pull it out.
Yes, let me just give you this one more example. Right. It's happened in Kumasi about 2 years ago. At that time, I was in charge of the Ashanti region. And around KJTia, a man, a bogger, had come, and it looks like a taxi driver crossed his way. And so they had some altercations and some arguments. So another taxi driver came in to separate them. Then out of rage, he went into his gloves compartment, not knowing he was having a pistol there. Then just pulled it out. And guess who he shot? He didn't kill the one he was having the argument with. He rather went to shoot the one who
tried to arbitrate.
And then, when he noticed that the mob were just about to attack, he took his own life. So a breadwinner who may have just told the family, I'm just going to work, or I'm just dashing out, I'll be back, now turns a dead body. And look at the other life he has wasted.
Yeah.
Who knows what would have happened if the mob didn't even come in? So that's why I always tell you, I'm sure if push come to shove, the worst they could have done was to exchange blows.
Yeah.
You say Ajay, and then we find somewhere to hide. Do you get it? But because there was a weapon, he wanted to show who had the power. He just goes to the gloves compartment, gets the weapon, and see what happened.
Yesterday, we had spokespersons for Mampugi and...
So the Mamprusi group, and then the Kusasi group as well.
And they were telling us that young people who live in Boko and its environs own guns, and these are expensive guns, as you know, as expensive as 20,000, 30,000 Ghana cedis, and they have to buy this out of necessity. We've had so many incidents of violence.
Actually, he mentioned that the kinds of guns they are using there, the G3s and the rest, you're talking of 60 to 80,000 plus cedis.
Hell yeah.
20,000, 30,000 is on the lower side, you know, those, some pistols and the rest. We're talking 60 to 80,000. And I think, I don't know whether it was Maxwell or Dauda mentioning that if you have someone, money is very important in those areas. If you have someone willing to expend that amount of money to get a firearm, it means the person wants to protect himself or herself and his or her family, and it becomes a very dicey matter.
Yeah. So I just want you to paint the picture for us in terms of possession of arms. What is the status quo in Ghana right now?
Okay, so actually, because our focus is on the elections, and we don't want to create that fear and panic or add to the tension, we've made it intentional that this time we try not to be talking about figures and statistics, but then trying to cause attitudinal change. Because like he rightly mentioned, now we look at the Boko issue. People, as you speak more about it and the figures, instead of solutions, people now feel that I'm not safe. I need to protect myself. And so in the security space, it will push the demand for weapons rather high. Now people will be wanting to own weapons. As they own weapons, they may even not do it the legal way that you and I, in terms of those who regulate weapons, will know that we have this weapon with this sweet lady or this handsome gentleman. And that becomes difficult. But on another day, when you call me, when the elections are over, now we can do great... we can have a great discourse on statistics and what is being done. But I can chip in briefly that the salient project, the Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign, one of the focus of that project is actually to do an assessment. We have something we call the baseline survey, and we are currently working on it, an assessment to know the actual state of play of weapons in the country. And as I speak to you, it is underway. So I'm sure by the end of the year or early next year, we will know exactly what is happening in terms of...
Let me take you back a bit. You mentioned that this is an election program, and it means that last 4 years too, you had a program like that. So what really is the intention behind the campaign, and how has it evolved over the years? Okay,
so last 4 years, we called it the ballots without bullets. So we were trying to cause attitudinal change and telling Ghanaians that elections are not war fields or a turf war, where I have to go to the polling station with a weapon. When it comes to elections, it is your intellect. It is your intellect and then your time. So you make your decision. After consulting the big man upstairs, you think that, oh, Mr. Handsome Man is the one I want to be the president. And I go to demonstrate or express that through my time. And so we say it is ballots. You speak by your time and not the bullet. So there's no need for you to carry a weapon to the police station. And we had a lot of... the major political parties coming on board. We had opinion leaders coming on board to also support the program. And so it was hugely successful, and we engaged the community as well. Just that this year, we just want to give it a little take to make it interesting. So we are calling it the Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign.
When you say it was successful, does it mean you were successful in removing or reducing the number of people who illegally possess these weapons? What qualifies as success? Okay, so it's a cocktail of approaches. One, we try to strengthen our public sensitization and education campaign, trying to let people know that let people know the dangers of owning a weapon, and also what it does to the development of the state, and then even the trauma.
the reprisal attacks that may come afterwards, because you shoot one person. Let's say people come in to actually solve the situation. A life has been lost. They may say, okay, but I can tell you secretly, they'll be planning on how to revenge or avenge. Yes, and it makes even conflicts stall. It prolongs conflicts that could have just been solved easily. So the first point is creating more awareness of these dangers and how it can take us back or erode the gains we are making. And then, and that is what we do through the public education. Then we come into strengthening the border security, and then even make sure that we have effective small arms control. So it's a cocktail of approaches. And then you see that by the end of the elections, you realize that it was more peaceful because the campaign had gone on well. People had given their support to the campaign publicly. So you can't do otherwise because you stood before your constituents, made that declaration live on TV, on the camera. They were there. You signed the pact, and you were given a token. And so we last 4 years, we had something like a gun where the muzzle and the chamber had been folded. So that is what we call is the symbol of the silencing the gun. So actually, the silencing the gun is a flagship campaign by the African Union to end conflict and war in Africa by 2030. And Ghana being a beacon of hope, and I like how Mr. Hanselman, yes, tried to speak about that, because we need to maintain that beacon of hope. Because if you look at Africa, now it is Ghana, when it comes to democratic reign, who is actually still on top. Through the electionary period, you see that there are a lot of issues, but Ghana has been able to keep the flag. And this is the time that the whole world is looking at us. It is the time that if we want to prove that we are democratic, we are peace-loving people, where the people see us outside from outside to be, this is the time we need to demonstrate. We must vote wisely, peacefully, devoid of gun violence. And that is what the Silencing the Gun campaign is aiming to achieve. And
just for clarity, before Ben comes in, this campaign is against illegal possession of firearms, not the legal possession, right?
Yes,
so illegal possession of firearms.
But we'll be glad to if people would trust the security agencies. Now, from where I sit, we have refresher courses with all the security agencies, because the work we do, you can't do it in silos. It's a teamwork. We work in tandem with them. And I can tell you that there have been refresher courses and trainings upon trainings. Just yesterday, we were in one with all the security agencies. So let's trust in the security apparatus so that we will not have the need to own weapons ourselves. They are equipped, they are trained. We need to trust them, and there will be peace.
And I think it's an important point you make at the end, that it's not just about legally possessing guns. Look at the United States.
Yes.
And some of what we're seeing, mass shootings and the rest.
Yes.
There are those who legitimately use them, but it's also to discourage even the use of or possession of firearms.
Yes.
Because again, even security operatives who have been trained, from time to time, you hear some of them misusing the firearms.
Thank you.
Because of that power that it seems you have.
Yes.
I've seen one before somewhere where, because the person was a security operative, whisked out a gun, and the civilian was, but it's because this person had a firearm.
Yeah.
So even among security operatives, it can be a dicey affair. Yes. But specifying, because there was that recent Reuters report that some in the security space have said, no, it is not a reflection of what is happening in Ghana. I'm sure you know of that report. But if you look at Boku currently, let's specify. What picture do you see in terms of small arms? For a number of years, there were amnesties granted by your commission. Many people did not take advantage of that. What is the status of Boku, and what do you see to be the possession rates? I know you don't want to talk figures, but what is happening there as far as you know?
So thank you for the opportunity. Now, before I pass any comments on Boku, I would want to plead with all social and political commentators not to try to politicize what is happening in Boku. Yeah. Because the Boku issue is actually a very delicate issue.
Very inflammatory.
Yes. And the moment you begin to politicize, don't forget that in the era we find ourselves, we are now in the political season. People are diehard fans of political parties. So if you begin to point accusing figures, you rather make people take entrenched positions, and that will even widen the gap as we try to bring in dialogue. So we'll plead with that. Now, the issue of Boko, you see, where Boko finds itself, looking at the northern part of Ghana, and if we look at the Sahel, and then the adjoining regions, the instability there. So you were mentioning the cost of weapons. So it may be, so assuming without admitting, some of the people you are talking about may not even be in the position to own those weapons, to buy the weapons themselves.
Yeah.
But we have something we call spillage and leakages. So if there is fight in the Sahel, and looking at the borders, the porous borders, these weapons could come in cheap. It could come in because people also want to finance their terrorism acts in their regions. So a weapon that will cost like 60,000, you could just sell it like 5,000, just make money to finance. So that's why I said, assuming without admitting. So I'm not saying that is true, but I'm trying to create the picture. And that is why it is alarming. And we are trying as a security apparatus, in terms of all of us, to make sure that we control the issues. So yes, by the videos and per the gunshots that we are hearing, you know that we have an issue in Boko. Now, it takes you and I to support the security agencies by watching the commentary we give, even as they try to calm down tempers. Because like I said, lives have been lost, people would want to attack. And so any wrong move in terms of negative commentary will rather spark rage and reprisal attacks. But because as I know, a lot is being done behind the scenes, because these are security matters. A meeting was held. They can't come out to tell you everything because some are security matters. It will be kept indoors and then they'll work at it. So
I bring up that point, of course, ahead of the elections. We also want to ensure, because any problem anywhere, it could be a problem everywhere. And like I said yesterday, if you have a pocket of a problem and you think, oh, Ayomo, it's up north, it can come down south. The issue, though, is, shouldn't we get to the point, knowing it's such a hot spot, and again, this will maybe be my final bit on Boko before we go to general matters, where we de-arm or disarm probably everybody in that enclave. There could be some exercise, because asking people to willingly bring arms, it's not going to happen. Looking at the factionalism that is happening there, is that something that you think can be done? Because if the arms are not there, yes, there are other weapons, but if the bullets, the guns are not there, at least you are halfway through resolving part of the crisis. If you look at the recent spate of, it is arms they are using. What do you think? Okay,
so you have a point there, but it won't entirely solve the situation.
No, I'm not saying it will entirely.
Yes. So I'll approach it this way. The security, like I said, there's been a meeting. They are trying to get things worked on. Now, so I'll give you from the small arms point. Forcing people to give up their arm, or trying to get them to give up their arm by force, may not yield the needed results. Because some may even hide the weapons and you wouldn't know. Unless you are given tip-off, you wouldn't know. Because if the person still feels that I still need that weapon, he may dig and hide the weapon or start it away where you wouldn't know. So when you try to let them know that you don't need this weapon or the dangers that associates with it, they may willingly want to give it up. I think that where it is going, in any security situation, first and foremost, the nation tries to take control through the security agencies, and that is what they are doing there with the curfew, trying to calm matters, and then the security will take control. Now from there, if the powers that be assess and they feel that amnesty, which you spoke about, is what is needed, they will call for amnesty. So I'm sure they are weighing the options. But what we are doing as a commission through this Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign is by looking at our borders. So we are doing capacity building for our officers at the borders. We have officers in the border towns to make sure that we man the borders very well. They are contemporary in terms of their search, so that we can stop the leakage or the spillage of these weapons from the Sahel, I don't want to mention the countries, but we know the instability, so that it wouldn't come in. We are even thinking, we've actually spoken to partners who have promised to support us to own drones. Because, you know, the border regions, they are very wide. And there are a lot of porous, unauthorized routes.
We do have porous borders.
Yes, yes, and that is, so the porous borders, we are actually, that's the capacity building and equipping them to be sure that where we have the approved borders, we are top-notch in terms of the discharge of our duties. And that is, we've been having capacity buildings as part of the Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign, where all the border officers, in terms of national security, immigration, customs, the commission itself, all the police, they have those training. And yesterday was one of the trainings we had. Beyond that, we are looking at how to man the unapproved routes, because it is vast. Today, you man here, and you know miscreants and criminals, they will always find a way to try to serve the system. They will open up another route. So when we have drones, we have a control center, and then the drones can now man those routes. And then if there's someone trying to use an unapproved route, they can actually swoop in.
About how many drones do you think you need?
So minimum 100 would do.
Okay, that's you work hand in glove, hand in hand with the National Security Ministry, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And actually, and the Ghana police, and then
I know. I just intentionally mentioned them. Okay. Do you know why I ask?
No, please.
Because we contracted, you know, we got drones into the country, supposedly, to fight Galamsey. We're supposed to get about, over 200 drones, almost 300 drones, for the purpose of Galamsey. I mean, these are industrial, large-scale drones that can also be used for other purposes. We can't find those drones. I'm just saying that if those drones were available, you probably would get the 100 you need. And the 100 could be used for other things. And you could get the 100 you need, tops, to go and do your work. But maybe someday, whether spiritually or physically, we'll find the drones. And when we do, sweetie. Because you see how these things have a ripple effect. Years ago, we spent, was it $3 million or so to get 200 or so drones. Yeah. And we can only account for 3. In fact, 3 were shown back then. The 197, we don't know where they are. But if indeed value for money and accountability were taking place, you see, they need drones to ensure that their work goes on speedily. And these are drones that could equally serve their purpose. But the drones are not available.
Where are the drones? But I want to stay on your theory, assuming without admitting, about how the conflict in the Sahel region in no small way contributes to the possession of illegal firearms that we're seeing in Boko and its environs. You did say, though, that we should trust the security agencies to keep us safe. So reconcile this for me. Prior to this campaign, how equipped were these security agencies? And this conflict has been going on for decades. What has actually been done to sieve or stop completely these firearms, illegal firearms that would or would not be sold at cheap prices relatively, from getting into these towns so that people do not take each other's lives?
All right. Thank you very much.
How equipped were they to handle these?
So the security agencies are equipped, but then you know that when we talk about organized crime, smuggling and trafficking becomes complicated. And the criminals always try to be a step ahead. And that is why there's the need for these refresher courses and capacity building, so that when we pick up intelligence, we quickly know their modus operandi, what they are using now. Because what they used yesterday or even a week ago, it will surprise you, it's no more what they are using now. The routes they are using, the mode of transportation is no more. There was a time that they were using donkeys they were trained. But it will surprise you that if you are still thinking about donkeys, they may be using cattle. Okay. Do you get it? Or even birds. You will never know. So you need to be contemporary. So that is what makes, because of the dynamic nature of the terrain when it comes to organized crime and trafficking, that is why you always have to have these refresher courses and trying to get new technology. Even with the scanners, we are trying to get more sophisticated ones. That could actually, because now maybe what you have scans metals. Now the criminal bringing in a weapon may not necessarily bring it in whole. It will strip the weapon.
Yeah.
Cannibalize it.
That is it. So if you just put a scanner, it will detect a metal. And supposing that it stashes it in a bag of spare parts, you wouldn't really know because you know that they are metal. So when it scans and it beeps as a metal, you wouldn't know. But when you have specialized scanners, that picks up weapons. When you scan and it's even metals, it can pick. Once it sees the part of a weapon, it will just tell you that, check this bag, there's something foreign in there. And that is where we are getting to.
Okay, I operate with, trust but verify, right? And I do want to get this confidence. At the end of this conversation, I want you to inspire confidence in our audience to trust the security agencies. Yes. So can you quantify it? Can you say that between, say, 2020 and 2023, due to your special operations, capacity building, and so on and so forth, you've been able to seize or stop a number of these illegal firearms from entering the country, especially in these areas where we are seeing pockets of violence all over?
There's been a lot. I can't quantify it because I told you we were not trying to go into figures, so I didn't really bring the figures along. But I can tell you we've actually intercepted explosives in Aplao and Akano. Yes. So the security, yes, in Akano. It's also there in the Volta region, where the military had to come in to transport it for safekeeping until, investigations have to go on. There's been interception of firearms. But because I didn't know that, we made it a point not to be going to figures, so I didn't bring the statistics along. But the security, I can tell you. So if just yesterday we were in a training like that, we left almost after 5. And that should tell you how we are taking this serious. Some had to come from all the way from Paga, Boko, itself, Lubo, because it's a serious issue. And it's something that is ongoing. We've been to Aplao to have capacity building. We've been to Elubo to have capacity building. We've been to Takrady as part of the silencing the gun to save a life campaign. We've also been to Secretary Takrady. We've been to Tema as well. And that should tell you. And it's ongoing. There's a list of places that we need to go, even beyond the elections. Because after the elections, that is when we need to be even more alert. So the campaign even goes beyond the elections, because we must ensure that the peace we sustain before, during, is also sustained afterwards.
Is this campaign also looking at policy reforms or something of the sort? Do share with us.
Yes, it is.
What kind of policy reform?
Okay, so
I just got curious. I was looking at this this legislative instrument that LI 2481 that talks about fees and charges for owning a firearm. And I think this, in my opinion, is too cheap. The charges are too cheap. Anybody can, but you tell us.
Sure. So as part of the Salient project, so the Salient actually is the Saving Lives entity. The Saving Lives entity. So that is what we call the Salient Fund. So through the UNDP, they've supported us. And one of the main things they want us to achieve during this project is to ensure that there is a legal reform. Our laws, they are very old. The laws that govern weapon acquisition and use is the Arms and Ammunition Act, 1972.
Yeah.
It's old. So we are trying to, and we've actually gone far. Okay. Yes. So very soon we'll have robust laws that will actually help us to govern. But I always say this, that the laws are made for man, but not man for the laws. So if we have the laws and then we don't have good attitude and responsible people, the laws will be there and still there will be issue. Yeah. So even as we have a robust law, let us all try to choose dialogue over violence. Let us all try that in this campaign period, even as we lead to the elections, let us be tolerant of each other's ideas. You may choose A, I may choose B. Let us vote. Let your thumb do the talking and not violence or not the gun. So that is the slogan for the Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign. Let your thumb do the talking and not the gun.
Carl, before you go, my very final bit for you, briefly.
Yes.
The statistics point to the fact that in the region, and I think we should look at sub-Saharan Africa, you're looking at about 100 million illegal arms. 10% of them are in West Africa, okay? Of that, when you come to Ghana, the last reports that we saw from your commission point to the fact that only 1.2 million out of the 2.3 million are properly registered or regulated, right? It leaves about 1.1 million in the mix. How are you dealing? Because if you look at Tyne, if you look at Odododiodo, if you look at, I can mention all of them, Tichiman North, you would see that sometimes it is the security services, but a lot of the time too, it is NPP and NDC members wielding guns. You remember the Mamubi incident recently, where there was this gentleman who has now been apprehended with a gun. How are you dealing with the political parties ahead of election 2024 to ensure that they are also under control and that they control their members? That's my final bit to you.
All right.
Briefly.
Okay, so I'll come to that, but briefly to touch on so that people will not be too alarmed. Now, when we say illicit weapons, so if you have a weapon, by the 31st of December, the license expires. You need to renew it. So when you own that weapon and you've not gone to renew it, it becomes illicit. So supposing we are doing the statistics tomorrow, that weapon will also add up to that statistic because you've not come to renew. And that's what part of the campaign. We are telling people that if you have a weapon, make sure you renew your license after 31st December. If not, it becomes illicit. And you could face the law, the wrath of the law if you are apprehended. Now, back to your question. As part of the Silencing the Gun to Save a Life campaign, there is broad stakeholder engagement where they all commit to a peaceful and gun violence-free election. And the political party leaders, the MPs are all, we've started the stakeholder engagement where they will give, they will make a video in support of it and pledging to peace and it to be shared. We've done that with the Foreign Ministry, we've been to the Electoral Commission and the rest. And now we are going to the political parties themselves. So it is part of the plan. They will assure their members and call them to order that we don't want peace. So if you are the one, if you're a political party member and you see the video going around where your leader pledges to peace, a gun violence-free election, when that leader comes to you, calling you to wield arms, don't do it. Remind them of that video and the pledge they made. And in any case, I always say this, the leaders, if you want to rule a nation and the people end up killing themselves, who will be the people you would want to rule?
Right.
Would you want to rule a place where there is anarchy and trouble? We only have one Ghana. It is our duty to make sure that we protect the peace that we have with all that it deserves. Thank you very much.
We are grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. We are playing our part. You are playing your part. Hopefully, all of us out there will also play our part to ensure that we maintain peace in Ghana before, during, and after the elections. Let your ballot count, not your bullet. Yes. And let's save lives with our actions. And I guess that's why the United States also, its embassy here, has taken that recent action to sort of clamp down on some of those actions. We had joining the conversation programs officer with the National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons in the person of Carl Ni Anyete Soa. He joined us for this conversation. Once more, we are grateful to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, do stay with us. We'll be back with more action as we proceed with our big stories right here on the AM show. We'll be right back.